Today on Dr. Phil, they were born into American royalty, but they survived the unthinkable.
They were small and frail, very underweight, had a lot of dark circles under their eyes.
These children report horrific abuse.
They said their mouths were being taped shut, being tied, being beat.
The mother they thought abandoned them.
They've been told, you're an evil woman.
Right. That I never loved them.
The father with $1 billion fortune.
Did he want children?
He needed heirs.
Now the twins struggle with trust.
Friends we thought were our friends really aren't.
They're just after you for money.
And fight to bring their accused abusers to justice.
I really want to see these people thrown in prison.
The darkness of riches. From victims to victors.
Today, the shocking continuation of the Inman twins' story. Children born into American royalty who say they spent their childhood terrified, neglected, and deadbolted behind mansion doors. Where would he hit you?
The face and the head. He'd pick me up by my ankles and he would drop me.
There were times that you were hungry. There were times that you were locked up. True?
They were feeding me my own.
The twins were born into extreme wealth, but they say their lives have been anything but privileged. Georgia said she would have traded lives with anybody in the world. Some people on the outside might look in and say, you know, look at all this money and wealth. For you, what was it like growing up with money?
It didn't matter to me.
It was blood money.
That's what it is.
Patterson says he wishes he could have ridden his BMX bike down the street with friends and come home to a kind and loving parent. How does your dad change when he was high? Because he wasn't always high, I'm sure.
He was always high, actually.
Were you ever around him when he was sober?
I don't think so. Like, he was always high. That was kind of sad, you know, seeing him nodding out, drooling.
The same children who brought diamonds to school for show and tell had wild animals as pets and vacationed on the beaches of Fiji were by their own accounts being horribly tortured and abused. Today, in part 2 of our exclusive interview, the twins continue to reveal their secrets about growing up trapped in a gilded cage. They want the world to know they are anything but poor little rich kids. They are survivors who are finding their voices and fighting for justice against the people they say harmed them. The twins are not alone in their fight against the individuals they claim have abused them. Standing behind them is their mother, Daisha Inman, who's been reunited with her children after more than a decade of being apart. Daisha, thank you for having us into your home. And I have to say, you have created what feels like a very warm and secure home here for these children. You wanted to have this conversation because why?
Because my children have never had a voice. And my children now have a voice because of you.
And the fact of the matter is, when we say they need a voice, people have not known what happened behind closed doors in those children's lives, and you want to set that record straight.
Yes.
An article was written by Rolling Stone magazine about your children, about all of the history. How do you feel about that article?
My children wanted to go from victims to victors. They even expressed how they would like to help other children with abuse, with neglect. What Rolling Stone did do was hit the nail on the head on the abuse and the neglect.
Rolling Stone characterized you as a flawed person and a flawed parent. You don't hold yourself out to be perfect as a person or a parent, correct?
Correct.
Nobody has a success-only journey through life, and you haven't either. You've had financial struggles, emotional struggles, marital struggles, family struggles. You've been very forthcoming about that and have not sought to spin that in any other way than, of course, I've done the best I could with what I had at the time. Is that a fair characterization?
Absolutely.
Now let me ask you a pivotal question. Has there been a day in the last 16 years that those twins have not been your number one priority?
No.
Has there been a day in the last 16 years that you have not gotten up every morning with their best interest at heart, whether you were with them or whether you were not?
From the time my children were kidnapped from me in a foreign country, I have looked for them, prayed that they were okay.
You said your children were kidnapped from you in a foreign country.
Yes.
What happened?
I was in the Grand Cayman Islands with my babies. It was a setup kidnapping. Walker considered me very grounded. I wanted him to get help. He had a pill addiction and a drinking problem, and I threatened to leave him. So this cleaning up that was supposed to take place, I was told he was going into a drug rehab. He needed our help when he was going through treatment. But that's not what happened. What happened is the very first day we got there, a private Learjet was waiting. My money was stolen. My passport was stolen. My clothes were taken. And I was left in a foreign country.
You say you're lured down there to help with his getting clean up through rehab. But then how did he get the children away from you? Where did he go?
Walker had asked me if I wanted to go out to dinner. Well, I was really sick. I had...
So you say, no, I'll stay home.
Yes. This all took place on March 14th, 1999. So they came back and took my babies, and I ran outside screaming, there are no car seats. And they kept driving. Walker was driving. As I understand it, they were in a hotel waiting for the private Learjet to fly in because they couldn't get my children out of the country.
And they went where?
The FBI located them in Houston, Texas. He thought he could hide out in Houston, Texas for 7 years, and then I would be, if I didn't have contact with my children, that he would just out and out own them.
How long was it before you laid eyes on those children again?
Several months.
But eventually, you get notice of some hearing for him to be awarded custody. He's asking for conservatorship of the kids.
I was served divorce papers.
You go to the court, and the ruling is what?
Walker got temporary custody of the children in Wyoming.
He is awarded custody of the children.
Yes, I had a divorce enforced upon me in the judge's chambers. My children were awarded to him.
I've talked to women time and time again that have had court rulings go against them. They have sometimes come up with every conspiracy theory you can imagine. Everybody was paid off, and so I lost custody of my children. And that's exactly what you're saying happened here, correct?
Yes.
And you believe that's what happened?
Walker was able to pay off many people. They turned their heads. This starts with a corrupt court system.
We go through a system failure here, in your opinion, that proper evaluations weren't done. At the end of that process, he has custody of your children, and at this point, he begins to step up his drug use.
Yes.
And it is getting worse and worse and worse until we now know it ultimately ends in his death in 2010 from a drug overdose. But during that time, Patterson and Georgia were, in fact, as you asserted, neglected and severely abused by a parade of people that were in Walker's life, world, house. Over 50 different people cycling through this house. These children report horrific abuse during this period of time, correct?
Yeah. The last time was when Georgia and Patterson were telling me about head drops being duct taped, but they didn't say duct tape. They said their mouths were being taped shut.
Did you ever stop trying to reconnect with the children?
Never.
Did you ever forget about them?
I have never stopped thinking about them. My motherhood was stripped from me. My children were stripped from a mom who loved them.
We now know, both from public record and from talking to the children, that teachers saw evidence of abuse with these children. Car wrecks took place. Things that clearly endangered these children. At times, police were called, but there would never be a charge. there would never be any action taken against Walker. Why is that?
Coming up.
They are totally poisoned against you. They're throwing rocks at the car.
That's why I had to get the ambulance. If I didn't get him off the hill, that I would never get them.
Plus,
They were very small and frail. They had a lot of dark circles under their eyes and just very mistrustful.
Monday, a family brutally slaughtered.
Police say Penny Caffey and her 8 and 13-year-old sons were shot and stabbed multiple times before dying. The house was then set on fire.
Police have arrested the 16-year-old daughter.
She has told a lot of different stories about what happened the night that they were murdered, but today we're going to try to find out the truth.
A Dr. Phil exclusive.
They practically decapitate your mother, shoot and stab your brothers to death.
Her plan was to have the entire family murdered.
So what was Erin's reaction when she learned that her father had actually survived the brutal attack?
I was shot 11 times.
These are bullet wounds in your father's body. Have you seen these? This is where they shot him in the face.
But is her father in denial?
You know that she planned this, right? How do you transition from the daughter that everybody would dream of to plotting the death of your family?
For the first time, the daughter speaks out.
You needed them out of the way for a reason. What was it?
We now return to The Darkness of Riches, from victims to victors.
At times, police were called, but there would never be a charge. There would never be any action taken against Walker. Why is that?
I find that strange, don't you?
Well, I found it strange until I talked to your children, who say on numerous occasions they saw huge wads of cash handed from Walker to the people that would be doing the reporting, doing the filing. So you start out with this huge tale of conspiracy of people getting paid off. You think, well, you know, maybe that happened, maybe it didn't. But then you talk to these children who year after year, time after time, say, why wasn't anything done with this? I saw him pay this person money. All of a sudden, this just isn't you saying it. Now, all of a sudden, there's a suspicious absence of public record and witnesses to the payoff.
There are many affidavits out of there that are also a part of the court record of Walker's friends, other people that have witnessed the same things, the abuse, the neglect, the drug use. Walker remarried to a severe drug and alcoholic who stated that she never wanted children. That was their deal before they got married. They caught her in Wyoming, weaving in and out of lines and heading into oncoming traffic. They noticed 2 children in the back seat swerving around with the vehicle, and they were not seat belted in. And when she was pulled over, she was high as a kite on meth. She put my children in extreme danger.
With your full permission, I have spent hours with your children. Your children are spectacular.
Thank you.
And damaged. They have been beaten, abused, starved, neglected, exposed to unconscionable dangers, witnessed a slow, tortuous murder from 10 feet away. Clearly, there's work to be done. Did Walker want children?
Yes, he did want children. He needed heirs.
If he didn't have heirs, the fortune goes away, right?
Absolutely.
When he passed, as the biological parent, you had an opening to re-enter those children's lives. And you were spring-loaded and you seized that opening. You went to that house. Tell me about that day.
Oh my God. I had set up 2 ambulances. I knew in my heart of hearts that I wouldn't be able to take my children with me because of the extreme parental alienation that had gone on for over a decade.
And how did they receive you when you pulled in, the children?
Georgia had boulders that she was throwing at this windshield. She did crack the glass in 3 different places.
I understood you were throwing rocks at the car or boulders. Have you got an arm on you? I mean, how far were you throwing these boulders?
She like destroyed a vehicle. It was,
Like, I didn't destroy her vehicle. It's like,
it looked like a shotgun blast on every side of the vehicle.
And they're throwing rocks at the car because they've been told you're an evil woman.
Right. They were told that I am the severe drug addict, alcoholic, prostitute living on the street, that I had no home, that I never loved them, never wanted them, never cared for them. That is what was put into their heads for many, many years.
I thought she was everything my dad said she was, an alcoholic, drug addict.
I think he called her a hooker, I believe.
So he tells you all this stuff.
Yeah, it makes sense.
And so naturally, you had a negative reaction.
Yeah.
They are totally poisoned against you.
Yes.
It's like, oh my God,
That's
please
why-
don't make us go with her.
That's why I had to get the ambulance. I was afraid that if I didn't get him off the hill, that I would never get them. I had them transported to WBI, which is Wyoming Behavioral Institute.
When I first started working with the children, they were very small and frail. They had a lot of dark circles under their eyes. They were very underweight for their age and their height, and just very mistrustful of any of the adults that were trying to help them.
During the time that you're able to start laying groundwork and building a bridge back, overcoming their perceptions, there were some moments for each one of them that kind of let them know, this doesn't sound like the woman we've been told about, right?
My children were in there for 3 months. I never gave up, even though they were really upset, pissed off, angry, wanting to know the truth, not wanting to see me. But I went there every day, trying to see them.
Georgia and Patterson were both very hostile towards their mother during the initial process of meeting her. Georgia often swore at her mother, called her names. Georgia spit on her. Daisha was very patient and very loving and very kind toward the children at all times.
I decided to buy a hedgehog. I named her Pokey. I thought that would break the ice. My children fell in love with Pokey, and especially Georgia.
So there was an icebreaker.
Yes, it was.
Georgia had a hard time believing that you never forgot her.
Not only was Pokey an icebreaker, Georgia went through my purse and dumped it all over the floor. And what she found in there was their pictures from the time that they were babies up to 2nd grade.
So after all these years, they find these pictures still in your wallet.
Yeah.
And that meant something to Georgia to see that, she supposedly didn't care about us. She's carried these pictures all these years. It's funny what little things make a big difference.
I just had to hold on to hope.
Today, would you agree it's the most positive relationship in your entire life?
Yeah. Hell
Yeah.
yeah.
Far and away, country mile, right?
yeah.
You have each other and her.
Yeah.
And you trusted yourself to take that next step with her.
Yep.
And look where you are now. You're a family again.
Coming up, is the twins' inheritance in jeopardy?
I got a call 3 months ago from a guy who said, I helped carry the gold out of the vault, and I know where it is, and I know who took it.
This February, get ready for unforgettable drama you won't see anywhere else.
Wasn't it your idea to kill your family?
Exclusive stories.
At age 19, I was married to the prophet of the FLDS people.
This 85-year-old man who has 64 other wives?
A former sect member confronts her polygamous father.
My father condoned my marriage.
How does that make sense to a father to marry his daughter off to the crypt keeper?
Stories that change lives.
You had a hand in putting my son in jail, possibly for life.
Was this soldier falsely convicted?
Have you ever made false allegations prior to this?
Yes, I have.
Is this father killing his child?
You have an addict for a daughter and you're giving her money. Are you telling me that you don't know she's buying drugs with it?
You took her to a drug house to get it.
Stories about real people.
I've wired James around $265,000.
A mom hooked by a love scam.
Does it bother you that you've never seen or met this guy? There's a point at which you've got to say, this guy's a fraud.
You're his cash cow. Is that him calling you right now?
Yes, it's him calling. Here.
You are a scumbag scam artist, and we know who you are, and you're going to give this lady her money back. What do you think of that?
Stories that make headlines.
I just witnessed the murders of my family.
A family brutally slaughtered.
Police have arrested the 16-year-old daughter.
You know that she planned this, right?
For the first time,
They practically decapitate your mother, shoot and stab your brothers to death.
the daughter speaks out.
You haven't told the truth yet, have you?
It all happens this February
What is the truth?
on Dr. Phil. We now return to The Darkness of Riches, From Victims to Victors.
The twins' mother, Daisha Inman, says she's desperate for justice for her kids. She says she literally cannot rest until she sees the people who harmed her children punished. What do you want to see happen now?
I want
You
to
have
see
your children.
justice. I want justice to be served for my children and for me, for all the years that we missed out of being a family, for what my children still go through. They've come a long way in 4 years that I've had them, but we still deal with meltdowns. We still deal with trying to piece our life back together. It's hard to move on when you still have these ugly, bad people, these criminals that are still involved in your life and won't allow you to move on. So we can't really heal until these bad people are prosecuted and convicted.
You feel that the people that have corrupted the innocence of these children, have abused them, neglected them, exploited them, need to be held accountable.
Absolutely.
And the people that manage the trust, the banks, have somehow decided that you're a reckless lunatic squandering away these children's trust. And they say you make demands for money for these children and have no receipts.
I used to send them receipts, but it's so damned hard.
But you have receipts.
But I have 4
May I
boxes
see the receipts?
of receipts.
May I see the receipts?
Patterson, what about the bags and boxes? I've got them out in the garage, actually, the boxes of receipts. Okay, this is just from a couple weeks.
So you have kept receipts. I've got here a trash can bag full of receipts, this basket full of receipts, this basket full of receipts. You spend money, you keep the receipt.
Yes.
Because these people are trying to suggest that you're doing other than a prudent job.
Right.
Of managing this.
Right.
You've got this battle with these banks that are characterizing you as being imprudent with the money and therefore making it difficult on the children and on you, and you want to challenge that. And I assume you're willing to do that with full transparency.
That's right.
And that's hard when you're dealing with multi-billion-dollar concerns and they won't allow the trust to engage independent counsel even.
My children have had no access to evaluations and mental health treatment. I've had no due process. You're looking at human rights violations when a child is denied mental health treatment. And we've had Matt Grimmer, wonderful attorney, that's been involved, and then the trustees said they were going to pay him, never paid him, and they still are not allowing my children counsel. Now, why?
So what's your immediate goal?
Our immediate goal, gather the information, call people to the table and make them answer the questions. And then bring it to a resolution, because then it's all out on the table. I got a call 3 months ago from a guy who told me I helped carry the gold out of the vault. And I know where it is, and I know who took it. I mean, there are people who I need to spend time with, and it takes resources. It takes time for my team to get out there and get this information, but we know we'll be successful.
I can tell you from a clinical standpoint that every day that goes by without the proper kind of support and intervention, then I think there's potential here for serious PTSD, depression, anxiety, and otherwise. I've seen traces of those things in the interviews I've done. You know, it's kind of like the fire truck pulling up after the house is burned down.
You guys are really helping to shine a light on it, and that's going to make a big difference.
I hope so, Matt. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much.
Appreciate it. Did y'all have any idea how rich you were?
No.
As children?
I didn't know how wealthy I was. I knew I had money, but I didn't know how much.
But I mean, did you know that you were better off than the people down the street?
No.
The kids you went to school with? Did you ever think of it that way?
I kind of saw how all the other kids, like, they had like cool parents and stuff. Like, they were so nice and kind. Do you get what I mean? Like, they were all happy. I was like, man, I wish I could be that kid on the block riding my BMX down the street with my buddies. I really didn't know what wealth was. I know I had money, but I didn't know. Do you get what I mean?
Right.
Yeah.
Do y'all know the value of money and things now?
Yeah.
I mean, like, do you know what a car costs versus a house cost versus something else?
I know money can bring good, and I know it can bring bad. Like, they're looking for friends, and they're not really friends. They're just after you for money. It's very annoying.
Do you feel that way?
Coming up, you'll hear what former nannies and caretakers have to say about what they witnessed behind mansion doors. We now return to The Darkness of Riches, From Victims to Victors.
Georgia and Patterson are normal teenagers in every sense of the word, but they also have a lot of things that are magnified just because of the layers and layers of trauma that they have experienced in their lifetime. If you think about a 16-month-old infant being taken from their mother and not even knowing what happened, she just disappears from their life. That was extremely devastating to the children from a developmental, psychological, and emotional development standpoint.
That was clinical social worker Jennifer Greenup, who met the children when they were placed in the Wyoming Behavioral Institute following their father's death. She now lives with the twins for 10 days out of each month, counseling them. Yesterday, you may have noticed that when Georgia and Patterson recalled the trauma of their past, they often reacted physically. Patterson would collapse in his chair and drop his head. Georgia sometimes had that 1,000-yard stare and oftentimes full body tremors. Now that indicates to me that they are both very raw and may well be suffering from PTSD. But today you'll notice that because they have found their voices and have finally been allowed to speak out, they literally blossomed before our eyes.
When I first started working with the children, they were very apprehensive to talk to anybody because they had experienced a lot of what is called extreme parental alienation, where they were told to mistrust other adults. It took a lot of work to develop a trusting relationship with the children.
There's like a lot of trust issues now because like friends we thought were our friends, we found out really aren't our friends. Right. I try to stay on the positive side though, like the bright side, like at least in our future we can do great things, you know, make worldwide changes, you know. At least we have an opportunities.
Right. At this point, why not just go to public school? What would be the downside to that? I'm not saying there isn't one, I'm just saying.
What would be the downside is right now in private school I don't have any bullying going on, and then some random kid starts bullying or just talking just to piss me off. I don't know,
I would stick up for you.
Do you get pissed off easy?
Well, if people talk bad about my father, of course, but you know, he had problems. It just, people talk about my family, it really pisses me off. Especially when people look at us with the bling bling sign, it really pisses me off. I'm not a normal kid, I know it, but I just want to be seen as just every other kid. Do you get what I mean?
I do. A wise man once said, you teach people how to treat you.
Yeah.
That was me that said that. But you really do teach people how to treat you.
Yeah.
By how you react to what they do, and
How about this? Be the change that you want to see.
yep, I think that's a great idea, and I think it's the difference between being reactive in your life and being proactive.
Coming up.
You're dating some guy and he even raises his voice to you. Kick his ass to the curb. Get out. You're gone.
Monday on an all-new Dr. Phil. A family slaughtered.
You needed them out of the way for a reason. What was it?
The convicted daughter speaks out.
You haven't told the truth yet. What is the truth?
That's Monday. We now return to Dr. Phil's exclusive interview with the Inman twins.
Tell me that you understand that none of this was your fault.
Yeah.
There wasn't anything you could do that justified what was done to you. I don't care if you broke a dish. I don't care if you failed a test. I don't care if you didn't clean up your room. I don't care. There is absolutely not one thing you could do that would justify any of this treatment that you've been subjected to. That was their illness, not your deficiency. You've got to know that, right? I mean, you have to understand it damages you. It makes it hard to trust, right? And I know that that is something that you'll have to work to rebuild, but you don't have to trust everybody in the world. You need to trust yourself to know, I've learned I can spot things when they're going wrong, and I now have a voice.
This is the first time that I've ever actually got to have a voice because everybody else was saying things for me. So right now, for my brother and I, this is like the first time that we've ever opened up with our own words and not having it twisted, literally get to have a voice.
And you have spoken very well. You are inspiring millions of people with what you're saying today. And I hope you're proud of it. I'm proud to be sitting here talking to you. It's meant a lot that you've trusted me enough to sit down and let you have that voice. Patterson Inman may seem like any other normal teenage boy. He loves snowmobiling and fishing, and he likes to play mischievous tricks on his sister. But Patterson suffers in silence, hiding the deep scars left by the years of torture and abuse he says he endured. It's important to me that you understand those wounds heal. You have to know and believe that those things can heal. You'll get where you can trust people again. You'll get where you can tell the ones that you need to trust and not trust. You'll be able to enter into a relationship and a bond with somebody and be a father of your own and do all of those things. It takes work. I think you've taken a giant step, even just as far as we've gone today in talking about these things and giving them a voice. I think that's an important step in people being held accountable, and I hope it's an important step for you in saying, I can talk about this stuff because I was a victim as a child, and I don't see you as a victim now. I see you as a survivor and somebody I'm proud of. I'm proud of the young man that sits in front of me right now. There's an old saying, the best revenge is living well.
Yeah.
And, you know, for you to come out whole and healed and strong as a leader and impacting people's lives, I mean, that's the best victory you can possibly have, and I hope today is a big step in that direction. I know trust is going to be a big deal for both of you going forward. And there's some good news and some bad news about that. The good news is that the only person you really need to trust in order to have relationships is you. And the bad news is the only person you need to trust to have relationships is you.
Yeah.
And I'll tell you why I say that. If you have confidence in yourself to judge people, to withdraw when you need to be resilient when others disappoint you, when they fall off that pedestal and they're not everything you thought they were, if you trust yourself to be able to cope with that, then you don't have to play the game of life with sweaty palms so much.
Yeah.
They'll realize that there's a real person behind the bling. Trust yourself to know the slime balls from the real deals. And you two are very smart. You are absolute survivors. I hate for you to spend any more of your life sitting on the sidelines than you have to. I'd rather you make some friends. Take it a step at a time. Be careful about it. And if you're dating some guy and he even raises his voice to you, kick his ass to the curb. Get out. You're gone. I mean, I'm not saying you shouldn't have pretty low level of tolerance, but at some point you got to get back out there. Just kind of take it a step at a time and trust yourself to be vigilant. Trust yourself to notice and pay attention and see what's going on. And other people are going to disappoint you. Of course they are. But at some point, you got to start stepping out a little at a time, because you can't live as hermits. You'll miss too much of life. And you guys deserve every bit of life. You deserve to have friends and go places and ride that BMX bike up and down the street. And let me tell you, this legal stuff will work itself out one way or the other. You got competent people. The team is building. I'm here now. My team's here now. You begin to expand your circle a little at a time because you took that next step.
Yep.
You trusted yourself to make up your own mind. And that's all I'm saying about getting back out in the world. You just deserve that.
Coming up, you'll hear what former nannies and caretakers have to say about what they witnessed behind mansion doors. We now return to The Darkness of Riches, From Victims to Victors.
Just in closing, let me say to both of you, it would have been a lot easier today to not tell your stories.
I feel kind of good telling my life. I feel a little better now than holding it.
Let me tell you something. It took a lot of courage, and I respect both of you. Let me tell you how this works. Everybody on the Dr. Phil show is a teaching tool, because there are millions of people watching, but just the two of you there. But there will be children in similar situations that see you. There will be parents that are about to give up the fight for their kids that will see this story and be inspired by your mother. There are people that will watch this story. It will make them be better parents, it will make them be better children, it will get them to never give up.
Yeah.
And they will understand, if those two can overcome what they overcame, I can damn sure overcome what's in my life. Yeah. Thank you for trusting me enough to sit and tell me your story. And just on the off chance that nobody has done this, let me, on behalf of the adult generation in this world right now, say I'm sorry what happened to the two of you. Sorry is not a big enough word. There are some screwed up people in this world, and there are some screwed up adults. Just know I am so sorry what happened to you. I don't feel sorry for you now. I'm just proud of your strength and courage. You did stop being victims and become victors.
Can I share something?
I believe that. Yes, please.
Sometimes when you go through really rough things in your life, you gotta look at that as something to overcome. And when I get older, I really am considering becoming a child psychologist because I want people and children to understand that you're not alone, and because I can feel and can connect to what they're going through. Like, I want to be that person to understand, you know, and not just some person listening to another story and not do anything about it. I want to make a change.
I believe you will.
It was good meeting you, man.
Good meeting you.
Yep.
And I'll see you again. Since our sit-down interview with the twins, we reached out to several people who say they witnessed the twins' upbringing. We talked to a former nanny who claims she witnessed the children being verbally and physically abused and starved. We also talked to a former plantation caretaker who says he witnessed the children being screamed at, locked up, and neglected. However, other people who work for the family say they never saw the children being abused and claim the twins were well cared for. A former estate caretaker says he began working for the Inmans when the twins were 8 years old and never saw them being harmed in any way. His 13-year-old daughter says she was friends with the twins and saw no signs of them being abused. A second caretaker also never witnessed any of the abuse the twins described. A former nanny for the twins in 2008 says she too never witnessed any abuse. And a former private teacher who worked with the twins for a year in 2006 and even lived with them on their yacht says she never saw them being mistreated in any way. We reached out to Walker Jr.'s fifth wife, the twin stepmother, Daralee Inman, and invited her to appear on this show. Although she declined our offer, she strongly and completely denies all of the allegations made against her. Want to know what's coming up on Dr. Phil? Visit our website and subscribe to our email newsletter. You'll get weekly updates, life strategies, and exclusive video that you won't find anywhere else.
Plus, on drphil.com, you can see sneak previews of upcoming shows. Log on today.
We now return to The Darkness of Riches, From Victims to Victors.
I've always said there's two things we should never do with children. One, don't ever involve them in adult issues. And two, don't ever let them even feel accountable for things over which they have no control, because that causes helplessness.
If these crimes and corruption are not brought to justice, we can't heal, and we have not seen justice.
I think there's going to be outrage about this, and I think hopefully we're going to see some things begin to change.
Thank you so
much. We'll see. The twins are looking for justice. They have told me they are ready to name names and prosecute those they say abused them during their childhood. Their story is far from over, and we'll be watching very closely as it unfolds. Finally speaking out and finding their voice has been very freeing for Georgia and Patterson Inman. You can see that they have truly taken big steps on their journey from victim to victor. Even though they have been through hell, the Inman twins are incredibly loving, smart, and happy kids. After bravely sharing their story, they wanted to get right back to being like any other normal teenagers, and they wanted to show me their snowmobiles. They even convinced me to take one for a spin. Let me tell you, it was an honor meeting Georgia and Patterson, and we wish them the best as they continue to heal. Thanks for watching. We'll see you next time.